Your brain is actively working against your bank account right now. Not metaphorically, not as a figure of speech. Neurologically, specifically, measurably, the way your mind is currently processing financial decisions is producing outcomes that are the opposite of what you consciously want. And the most unsettling part of what I'm about to show to you is not the mechanism itself. It is how long it has been running without you knowing it was there. Think about the last time you had money and it disappeared before you understood where it went. Think about the budget you built with genuine intention that held for 11 days. Think about the savings account you opened, funded, and quietly drained. Think about the financial decision you made that felt completely reasonable in the moment and inexplicable 3 weeks later. These are not random events. They are not bad luck strung together by coincidence. They are the predictable output of a specific psychological loop running in your brain, a loop that was never designed for the financial environment you are living in, that gets stronger under pressure, and that most financial content will never show you, because most financial content is addressing the symptom, while this video addresses the source. You are not bad with money. Your brain is running a program that was written for a completely different world, and until you see the program, you cannot interrupt it. That is what the next several minutes are going to do. My name is Isabella, and I spend way too much time thinking about the distance between what people consciously want for their financial lives and what their psychology is silently producing instead, and why every budget tip, every savings hack, every motivational piece of financial content fails the moment it meets the actual neurological architecture of a brain operating under financial stress. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And be honest about this one specific thing. When was the last time you knew exactly what you needed to do with money and your brain found a way to not do it anyway? Tell me that moment. Tell me where you are, whether you are in New York or Toronto, Chicago or London, Atlanta or Vancouver. I read every single one, and if the first 30 seconds of this video already felt uncomfortably accurate, subscribing means you will not miss what comes next. Now, the reason most financial content fails you is not because the advice is wrong. The budget categories are correct. The compound interest mathematics is real. The emergency fund logic is sound. The advice is fine. What the advice does not account for is the specific way your brain behaves under financial stress. Because under financial stress, your brain stops being the rational, long-term planning instrument that financial advice assumes it is, and becomes something older, more urgent, and far less interested in your retirement trajectory than in resolving the immediate discomfort of right now. That shift is not a choice. It is neuroscience, and it is the core of everything we are going to cover today. Researchers at Princeton and Harvard gave this phenomenon a name in a landmark study published in the journal Science. They called it the scarcity mindset, and what they found changed how behavioral economists think about financial stagnation at the most fundamental level. Princeton economist Senthil Mullainathan and Harvard behavioral scientist Eldar Shafir spent years studying not what broke people do wrong, but what their brains do differently under conditions of perceived financial scarcity. The finding was this: financial stress does not just affect your decisions, it physically reorganizes your cognitive architecture. It narrows the bandwidth available for long-term thinking, reduces impulse control, increases time discounting, the tendency to choose smaller rewards now over larger rewards later, and produces exactly the decision-making patterns most likely to deepen the financial problem rather than resolve it. This research has been replicated in over 200 subsequent studies across 12 countries. The pattern is consistent regardless of income level, education, or cultural background. The scarcity mindset is not a personality type, it is a neurological response, and it is running in you every time financial pressure rises, regardless of how intelligent you are, how much you care, or how hard you are trying. Here is where the data makes this impossible to dismiss as theory. According to research published in the Proceedings of National Academies of Sciences in 2019, individuals experiencing financial stress showed measurable reduction in prefrontal cortex activity, the brain region responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making, equivalent to the cognitive impairment produced by losing an entire night's sleep. Not feeling tired, actually impaired. The financial stress you are carrying right now is neurologically reducing your capacity to solve the financial problem you are stressed about. Read that again. The very condition that makes financial clarity most urgent is the condition that makes financial clarity hardest to access. Your brain is being asked to navigate its way out of a problem using the exact cognitive resources that problem is consuming. That is not a character failure. That is a physiological trap. Let that sink in. According to a 2022 American Psychological Association study, 72% of Americans report money as a significant stress. Of those, 68% report that the stress actively interferes with their ability to make clear financial decisions. The majority of people experiencing financial stress are simultaneously experiencing the cognitive impairment that makes solving it harder, and they are interpreting that impairment as personal weakness rather than neurological reality. According to research from the University of British Columbia published in 2021, individuals under perceived financial scarcity are 74% more likely to choose immediate small rewards over larger delayed ones than individuals who feel financially secure. This is called hyperbolic discounting. It is not a moral choice. It is the brain recalibrating its time horizon in response to stress, making next month genuinely less real than right now. The person who spends what they meant to save is not a failure of willpower. Their brain has been physiologically recalibrated to make that choice feel like the rational one. According to a 2023 Journal of Consumer Psychology study, 61% of people who describe themselves as chronically struggling with money experience intrusive financial thoughts for 4 to 6 hours per day. They are not ignoring the problem, they are consumed by it, but the consumption is anxious and circular, burning cognitive resources without producing solutions, because the scarcity mindset produces a specific kind of financial thinking that feels productive and generates nothing. Now, here is what the scarcity mindset actually does to you in practice, and this is where most people have the recognition that makes everything that came before it make sense. The first thing it does is narrow your attention to a width you have probably never consciously noticed, but have felt constantly. When your brain is running the scarcity program, it locks on to the immediate financial pressure with a focus so intense that everything outside it becomes genuinely difficult to perceive. Not theoretically difficult, neurologically difficult. The brain under scarcity produces what researchers call tunneling, a state of hyper-focus on the urgent that physically reduces awareness of everything beyond it. This is why the long-term financial picture feels abstract and distant when you are stressed about this week. It is not that you do not care about it. Your brain has physically narrowed its aperture, and the long-term picture is outside the tunnel. The budget you built at a calm moment collapses the second a real pressure arrives, because real pressure activates the tunnel, and the tunnel has no room for a budget spreadsheet. The tunnel only has room for right now. The second thing the scarcity mindset does is something far more personal and far more destructive. It writes a story about who you are. When financial struggle is present long enough, the brain does not continue treating it as a temporary external condition. It absorbs it as identity. I am not a money person. I have never been good with numbers. This is just how it has always been in my family. Money has always been a source of stress for me. These feel like honest self-observations. They are not. They are identity statements your brain constructed from evidence collected during a period of financial stress. And once an identity statement is accepted, the brain filters every subsequent experience through it, noticing what confirms the story and discarding what contradicts it. The person who has decided they are bad with money will remember with vivid clarity every financial mistake they have made and will experience moments of financial stability as luck rather than competence. They will unconsciously self-sabotage the stable moments, spending the windfall, declining the opportunity, avoiding the conversation, because stability does not match the internal story, and the brain is neurologically motivated to restore coherence between who it believes you are and what your external reality looks like. This is not self-destruction, it is identity maintenance, and it is happening below the level of conscious awareness in everyone who has been carrying a financial struggle long enough for it to become part of how they see themselves. The third thing the scarcity mindset does is exploit the comparison machinery your brain runs constantly and involuntarily. Social comparison is not vanity. It is a cognitive tool the brain evolved to calibrate appropriate behavior within a social group. For most of human history, the relevant comparison group was the people you could physically see and interact with daily. Your brain evolved to use their financial behavior as its reference point. Now that reference group is 3 billion people on a screen, specifically the most curated, aspirational, financially performative version of those people, and your ancient brain is running the same calibration software against a completely distorted input. The result is continuous, unconscious upward pressure on your spending that has nothing to do with what you genuinely need or value. Your brain is trying to maintain social coherence with a reference group that does not reflect reality, and it is using your bank account to do it. Every purchase that felt slightly beyond what you could afford, but somehow necessary, was your brain solving a social belonging problem with a financial instrument, and the social signal it was responding to was manufactured. The fourth thing the scarcity mindset does is the one that explains why you keep returning to the same place even after genuine progress. Psychologists call it behavioral reversion, the consistent pattern whereby new financial behaviors, even when sustained for weeks or months with real commitment, collapse back to baseline the moment stress levels increase. The new budget holds until the unexpected bill arrives. The savings habit continues until the difficult month hits. The investment plan survives until the external pressure mounts. Then the old patterns return, not because you lacked commitment, but because under stress, the brain defaults to its most deeply practiced neural pathways. For most people, the most deeply practiced neural pathways around money are the ones formed earliest in conditions of scarcity, reinforced across thousands of subsequent repetitions. New habits require new neural pathways. New neural pathways require consistent, low-stress repetition. The people who most need to build new financial habits are operating under the highest financial stress. The loop is closed from the inside. Let us make this real. Keisha is 31 years old, a project coordinator in Atlanta, Georgia, earning $58,000 a year. She is not someone who ignores her finances. She thinks about money during her commute, in meetings, lying awake on Sunday nights. She has downloaded 4 budgeting apps in 2 years. She has watched more financial content than she can count. She has started the emergency fund 3 times. Each time it reaches somewhere between $600 and $900, something happens. Last year, it was the car. The year before, a medical bill her insurance did not cover as expected. The year before that, 3 things simultaneously. She calls it bad luck. She's not wrong. The events were real. But what Keisha has never been shown is that the events are predictable. Not the specific events, but the category. Life, every year, for everyone, produces car repairs and medical bills and difficult months. These are not exceptional occurrences. They are the normal turbulence of ordinary life. And her fund kept depleting not because life is cruel and random, but because the fund was sitting inside a financial architecture with no structural defense against predictable turbulence. She also carries the identity, not naturally good with money. She uses the word naturally as if financial competence were distributed at birth rather than built through specific knowledge and practice. Every depleted fund updates the story. Every update makes the next fund slightly harder to build because the brain is now protecting a belief system rather than just managing a balance. She earns $58,000 a year. Over 30 years, that's $1.74 million moving through her hands. The question of where it goes, of what architecture exists to capture any fraction of it, feels abstract from inside the tunnel. From outside the tunnel, it's the only question that matters. Keisha's situation is not unique to Keisha. It is running right now in cities across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, in people who are trying genuinely, consuming information seriously, wanting different outcomes intensely, and finding themselves back at the same place despite all of it. The financial content industry addresses the surface, the budget categories, the savings percentages, the investment vehicles. These are correct at the level of information. They are useless at the level of neurological reality because the brain running the scarcity mindset will not follow them, not from lack of trying, but because the program running underneath the conscious decision is more powerful than the conscious decision. You are not broke because you are lazy. You are not broke because you don't care. You are not broke because you lack access to the right information. You are in a loop that was shaped by stress, reinforced by repetition, and sustained by an environment specifically engineered to exploit it. The consumer economy profits from your impulsivity. The credit industry profits from your time discounting. The attention economy profits from your comparison anxiety. The entire architecture of the modern financial environment is built around the scarcity mindset, because a brain running the scarcity mindset is the most profitable customer that system has ever found. You were not kept here by accident, and the exit begins the moment the program becomes visible. So what does actually interrupting this look like? The first intervention is not financial. It is attentional. The tunneling effect can only be interrupted by deliberately forcing your attention to a wider frame on a fixed schedule before the tunnel activates, not after. Once the crisis is present, the tunnel is already running, and no amount of trying to think broadly will override it. The practice is a standing weekly appointment, 30 minutes, where you are not looking at the immediate balance, but at the annual trajectory. Not this week's number, this year's direction. The brain cannot simultaneously tunnel and track trajectory, but trajectory will never enter your attention spontaneously while the scarcity mindset is running. It requires deliberate scheduling against the grain of the program. The second intervention is identity level. You need to examine every statement you use to describe your relationship with money and ask precisely when you decided it was true. Not naturally good with money. When did you decide that? Who taught you that? Is it describing a fixed characteristic or a pattern of behavior that different architecture might produce differently? Most of these statements will not survive honest examination, but they will continue running until you examine them, because the brain follows its identity instructions with extraordinary loyalty, regardless of whether those instructions are accurate. The third intervention addresses the comparison machinery directly, and the mechanism here is curation, not willpower. The social inputs your brain consumes daily are the reference group it is calibrating your spending against. You cannot fight the comparison program. It is involuntary and ancient, but you can change what it is comparing against. The person whose daily social environment shows people building financial security gradually and quietly has a brain running a different spending calibration than the person whose daily environment is aspirational consumption. Change the input, change the calibration. The fourth intervention is the one that actually defeats behavioral reversion, and the research is unambiguous about what this is. It is not stronger commitment, it is automation. Under stress, the brain defaults to its most practiced neural pathways. If the practiced pathway is automated savings, automated investment contributions, automated bill payment, the default under stress produces the right outcome without requiring a decision at the worst possible moment for decision-making. Automation is not a savings tip. It is a neurological intervention. It removes the financial behavior from the decision environment, where the scarcity mindset will always win, and places it in a structural environment, where it runs regardless of what your brain is doing under pressure. Picture yourself 18 months from now in a genuinely different relationship with your own financial life. Not wealthy overnight, not free of all pressure immediately, but different in the one way that makes every other difference possible. The patterns are now visible to you. You see the tunnel forming when the crisis hits, and you have a practice for widening before it closes. You catch the identity statement arising after a financial setback, and you have stopped letting it update the story. You have changed what your brain is using as its social comparison reference, and the most important financial behaviors are automated, running beneath the stress, unaffected by it, continuing to build regardless of what the month brings. The circumstances have not all resolved, but the program has changed, and the program was producing the circumstances. Now, picture staying exactly where you are, not from laziness, not from indifference, from not seeing the program, from continuing to apply information to a neurological problem and wondering why the information keeps failing, from trying harder at the same level where every previous attempt has failed because no one has ever shown you the level underneath it where the actual decision is being made. Keisha started the emergency fund for the fourth time. This time, she understood the tunneling effect that made every previous fund feel like a resource available for the current crisis. She automated the contribution on payday before the month could generate a reason to redirect it. She examined the identity statement. She changed what her phone was showing her every day. The fund is at $2,200 now, and she has not touched it in 7 months, not because the crises stopped, because the architecture changed. That shift is available to you today, not next month, not after the current thing settles. Today, because the program does not pause while you wait for the right moment to address it, and every month it runs unobserved is a month it deepens. The question is not whether you are capable of a different financial life. The question is whether you are going to keep applying surface solutions to a psychological problem, or whether you are ready to look at what is actually running. Before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Which of the 4 patterns hit you hardest? Was it the tunneling, the way financial stress physically narrows your attention and makes the long term feel unreal? The identity piece, the story your brain has been protecting about who you are with money, the social comparison machinery running invisibly through your spending decisions, or the reversion pattern, the way new habits keep collapsing back to baseline the moment pressure arrives. Tell me which one you recognized in yourself. Be specific. Be honest. The most valuable thing in this comment section is what happens when people tell the truth about where they actually are. And tell me where you are watching from, whether you are in New York or Toronto, Chicago or Vancouver, London or Sydney. The scarcity mindset loop runs the same neurological program in every city and every income bracket. Drop your location below. If someone you care about keeps trying and keeps ending up in the same place, not because they are careless, but because they have never seen the program, share this video with them. It costs you nothing. It might change something that has been stuck for years. If this earned a like, it helps more people find this who are quietly living these patterns without knowing they have a name. And subscribe if you want to keep building this, because today we mapped what is running, and the next conversation is about rewiring it permanently. Thank you for being here. Now, go look at what is actually running.